So today's topic that we're looking at is, should your first property be a place to live in or an investment? Now, my name is Max Phelps. I'm a money coach with Golden Eggs, where we're on a mission to help people stop worrying about money and get on the path to financial freedom. And I'm joined today by Tammy on the other end of the call. Tammy, how are you?
I'm well, thanks, Max. How are you?
Very well, thank you. So Tammy, give me the question in your words, please.
Yes, so often I think about buying my first home in the next couple of years, but, I look at how expensive the market is and I just don't know if I'll be able to afford it really for an owner-occupied. So I'm thinking, should my first purchase be an investment property somewhere, away from Sydney and I can rent vest, or really, I don't know what the wisest option is, I guess.
Yeah, well, as you know, the answer is always it depends. So depending on both your current situation and on your goals will determine kind of what makes most sense. I guess the first thing though is your deposit. Is like deposit and income determine what you can buy. And if you can't buy a property that you could live in, or you have to wait another 3 to 5 years or something to do that, well then maybe you might want to do something in the short term so that you can have something. And that's something that the guys here, Sam and Christian, they did exactly that. They bought their first property as investments, and they bought properties for under $300,000. And obviously the income and the deposit you need for those properties is significantly less than now they're just buying properties in Sydney that are like $700,000 plus.
Wow.
And that's just for a unit. So that's what suited them based primarily on their deposits and their income at the time. And so it suited their needs. But so the deposit is one thing. The second thing is, what can you live in? And you're currently living at home with family, as were Sam and Christian at the time. And so for them, moving into their own place was going to be an expensive exercise anyway, because suddenly they're going to be paying their own mortgage. But there's also that, where could you live? And can you take advantage of the first home buyer benefits? And so there's a few first home buyer benefits that we'll talk about in another video. But generally speaking, you have to live in that property for at least 6 months, which means it's got to be in an area that you could live in or tolerate living in for at least 6 months in order to buy it to live in. Now, personally, I'm a bigger fan of, if you've got the deposit together and if it makes sense, to live in the crappiest property that you can tolerate living in, and then buy it and pay down that mortgage as fast as you can. Because then effectively you can live in that property rent free for then a period of time. And when we look at long-term finances, that's the option that often can make the biggest difference. But if you're planning on living at home for the next 5 or more years, then that might not make any sense at all. And that's where the investment option might come in. Now, the benefit of an investment property, on the other hand, is that because you don't have to live in it, it can literally be anywhere. And so the guys happened to buy in Brisbane because a couple of years ago that was a great market. It still is a pretty decent market to get into. You just can't buy the properties at the price they bought at in the areas that they bought in, because those properties have gone up a lot in value, which is awesome for them because they bought them. And so buying somewhere out of area becomes possible when it's an investment. There is a clever trick though, and that's to use a family trust. And that may sound like a weird, expensive thing that only rich people have. But the truth is, once you understand them, they're not as complicated. And I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth, and nor did you or any of the guys here, to be honest. Well, maybe Christian, I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, a trust is something simple that you can set up, and the guys both set up their own trusts to buy their investment properties in. And so now when they want to buy in Sydney, they can still get the first home buyer benefits because they haven't bought in their names.
Oh, right. That's very clever. I should do that.
Maybe you should. You know who you can talk to about doing that sort of thing, don't you?
Yeah, I had had no idea. I thought that they bought it in their own name, so then they wouldn't get that first home buyers. But I didn't know that. Wow.
No. That was exactly. So the reason they set up the trusts is to protect their first home buyer benefits, and it just gave them a way of buying a very cheap property, but then still buying a place here in Sydney to live in, which actually Sam just did on the weekend, and Christian is, well, just missed out on a property yesterday, but they're both in the middle of buying now. Christian has 2 properties in his trust.
Are there any downsides to having trusts? Surely there's not.
Yeah, there's a whole nother video we need to do on that, but and they work really well for Queensland properties or SA or WA. They're not so good in New South Wales and Victoria. But that's to do with land tax. So again, I don't want to get they're too involved in them, because it's actually a complex subject that maybe we should address in another video. But the thing is, they're not as scary as you might think. And like I say, we've all set up our own by just going online and setting them up ourselves.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So yes, first home or investment, it's going to be up to you. The best thing you can ever do, talk to a good broker about your goals and what you want to do. They can help you work out what you can afford. And then if you're going to buy interstate, it might be wise to speak to a buyer's agent that might be able to help you find something interstate. Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect.
Lovely. So that's it for today on buying your first home as investment or owner occupied property. Any other questions, let us know. Hit us up in the comments. Always try and like our videos, like what we do, and we'll keep sharing more. My name is Max Phelps, and as always, try to be genuine, have fun, stay curious.